If you're looking for the best laptop for the Adobe Creative Cloud suite, then you're in the right place. In this video, I'll be covering different laptops at different price points, different performance capabilities, different color accuracies, and I'll also talk through exactly which app is best for which laptop. We're gonna have all these categorized. It's gonna be really organized and bring you a ton of value in a medium amount of time. So let's get rocking. And to give you a little bit more context on what to expect, we're going to check out laptops in ascending order, best fit for each app and capabilities, benchmark tests at the end of the laptop walkthroughs, discussion regarding the specs, as well as the relation of, CES and the latest models coming out. So I'll discuss why, usually we don't anticipate the CES models that are announced to come out either mid to late spring or even the summer. And so we'll talk about that, and also note that if you're watching this video later at that time, I'll update the links in the description below to make sure that the latest models are available to you. So definitely, if you're watching this video later, note that this video is still relevant. Also, like I just mentioned, those are affiliate links in the description below. So if you do make a purchase, I will get a small commission, but at no extra cost to you. And that's what keeps this channel alive and the helpful content coming your way. Now, remember, these are some of my favorite picks. So if you don't see the laptop that you're considering, either drop a comment below or use some of the content that you see here in this video to compare which laptop you're getting, and then my recommendation, and see how those specs line up and see if you're making a good choice. Otherwise, comment below and somebody in the community or myself will be happy to help you out. All right, let's dive right into it. So the first use case is going to be best for Photoshop, InDesign, and Illustrator. So starting on the lower end of the budget, we're going to be looking at these are technically capable laptops, but they're going to have some lower color accuracies, and they'll be slower in some of the more intensive tasks inside of Photoshop, such as smart sharpen, noise reduction, saving a PSD, like very, very large PSDs, maybe iris blur, field blur, resizing a photo to 500 megabytes after shooting RAW. Some of those things will take a little bit more time on these laptops. Not saying it's not possible. That's just something you can anticipate. Now, these are going to have plastic build qualities or thin aluminum. They're going to have less RAM, which means you might get less multitasking, and less storage, which means you might end up having to use some external drive backups in order to make sure you get the most out of this laptop and you don't run out of space. So without further ado, let's jump into our first laptop, and that's the Lenovo IdeaPad 3. It's a great laptop to kick you off. It starts at the lower end of the budget, below $500, comes with the 4-core, 8-thread AMD Ryzen 5 3500U, 2.1 base clock, 3.7 turbo clock. Comes with 8 gigs of RAM, which is my recommended minimum. I don't recommend anything less than 4 gigs for Photoshop. It just gives you what you really need for that punch and performance in the app, as well as multitasking. You don't want to be, trying to work in InDesign and Photoshop at the same time, and then you end up, bottlenecked because your laptop's struggling to run both of those programs at the same time. So that's why I always recommend 8 gigs of RAM as a base minimum instead of 4. All right, next up, and also wanted to mention 14-inch screen, and then as you see, this is the lower color gamut range I'm talking about with these more affordable laptops. We got a 56% sRGB and a 36% Adobe RGB. So as we move into the more expensive laptops, that's one of the things that you'll see improve is color accuracy. Now, to make a laptop more affordable, they try and put good components in it, but the way they can save money is to cut corners a little bit on the screen quality. So you'll see lower brightness on the screens as well as lower color accuracy. All right, moving forward, next one on the lineup is the Dell Inspiron 15. This laptop comes with the 11th gen Intel Core i3-1115G4 with 2 cores and 4 threads. It's about a $550 laptop. Base clock of 2.1, turbo of 4.1, Intel Ultra HD graphics, 8 gigs of RAM, and 128 gig SSD. That's where I mentioned you're going to have a little bit smaller storage size, so that 128 gigs will get filled up pretty quickly, so I would recommend keeping an external drive along with you. You can get some portable ones like the Samsung drives. I can link one of those in the description below. I really like those. Those are good models, affordable and reliable. Well, maybe not the most affordable, let me restate that, but they are very reliable, they're high speed, they're great quality. Next up is a 15.6 inch full HD display and a 67% sRGB and 49% Adobe RGB. All right, moving on is the HP Pavilion. This laptop comes with the Ryzen 5 4500U, 2.3 on the base, 4.1 on the turbo. This is 6 cores and 6 threads. Now, this is an upgrade from the first laptop, which had the 3000 series. This is going to be a little bit faster compared to that first laptop we saw, and going to be about $100 more. This one comes with 8 gigs of RAM, 512 gig SSD, and 15.6-inch Full HD display. I don't know the color accuracy, unfortunately, on this one. I would guess that it would be around the 60% Adobe RGB and 40-ish percent the 60% sRGB and around a 40-ish percent Adobe RGB, according to the price point and specs that are included. But I don't have confirmed facts on this one. Next up is the MSI Modern 14. This is a great laptop on the go, really good build quality. I'm quite a big fan of MSI. I know there's some people who would disagree. I've had great experiences with them at CES last year. I met the crew. They're really great to work with, and I have not had any shady interactions with any of the MSI people. So I'm a proponent of MSI gear. The Modern 14 comes with the Ryzen 5 4500U, 2.3 in the base, 4.0 on the turbo, 6 cores, 6 threads, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gig SSD, 14-inch Full HD display with 64% sRGB and 48% Adobe RGB. This is a $650 laptop. I really like this laptop. Great for on the go. Like I said, good build quality. It's a good pick for sure. Next up is the Acer Swift 3. This is actually my daily driver. I have a full review. I have in-depth reviews of this laptop. I compare this laptop to the MacBook Pro M1 actually. If you're looking for a laptop with 90% of the performance at half the price, this could be a great option for you. It's an aluminum build. I've been using this laptop for about over a year as my kind of on-the-go daily driver for my business, and I really enjoy it. It has a great battery life, lasts me usually about 9 to 11 hours depending on screen brightness. Really, it's the best bang for buck in this category. It comes with the Ryzen 7 4700U with the 2.0 in the base, 4.1 on the turbo, 8 cores, 8 threads, 8 gigs of memory, 512 gig SSD, 14-inch Full HD display. Now, the color accuracy isn't great. That's one of my disappointments, but you could easily get, so with all these laptops, you could easily get a color accurate screen. Something like the Acer Acer Concept D CM2. It's a screen I'm actually using right here, and it's got 100% across the board for Adobe, sRGB, and DCI-P3 is 96 actually. So it's a great color accurate screen, and it's around $300. So it's not like cheap screen, but it's a great color accurate screen for the price point. Anyway, so you could match this screen with this laptop here and have a great design Photoshop laptop, Adobe InDesign, Adobe Illustrator, and then you could also get into Premiere Pro and do some 1080p editing. So this laptop with this Ryzen 4700U is a really good all-around laptop if you're getting into being a creative professional in the Adobe Design Suite, and all for around $650 depending on when you make the purchase. Next up is the HP Pavilion X360. This is a great 2-in-1 laptop. It's got the pen capability. It's going to be able to articulate fully around to be an open, more of like a tablet style. It's about a $750 laptop. The i7-1035G1. 1.0 on the base clock, 3.6 on the turbo, 4 cores, 8 threads, Intel Ultra HD graphics, 16 gigs of RAM. So this will be a great multitasking laptop. It's going to have more RAM than any of the models we've seen so far. And you're going to have a 14-inch screen. And the color accuracy, again, we're still struggling with that color accuracy, 61% sRGB, 46% Adobe RGB. But do note, you can do some 1080p video editing with this as well. It'll give you some good results on that. Next up, this is my budget beast, so to speak. This is an Acer Nitro 5. This is something that is going to be the first laptop we see with an H-series processor. If you want to learn more about processors, I have dedicated videos on my channel walking through the differences between H-series processors and U-series and G-series. And I'll actually link that video in the description, in the YouTube cards above. I'll try to remember that, so if you're curious about a full walkthrough on all the processors between Intel and Ryzen, you can check that out. Now, this laptop does come in at $829, but this is a 4K capable laptop. I've had this in my studio. I've reviewed it. It does handle 4K well. It has 6 cores, 12 threads, 3.0 base clock, 4.0 turbo, and it has the GeForce GTX 1650 dedicated GPU. So again, the first laptop with a dedicated GPU as well in this lineup. Has 8 gigs of memory. I'd recommend upgrading that to 16 to get the most out of this laptop. 512 gig SSD, but unfortunately, we still see that 65% Adobe sRGB and 49% Adobe RGB, so that low color accuracy is still here. Really below the $1,000 price point is when we see these lower color accuracies. Once you start moving above $1,000, we'll start to see more improvements on the color accuracy. But it's one of the disappointments. I've been trying to talk to brands to get a color accurate screen and a more budget friendly laptop, and it's more expensive. That extra screen costs them an extra maybe $200, and that cost gets pushed on to the consumer. Next up would be the HP Pavilion gaming laptop. This laptop is the same processor as the Acer Nitro. It's just an HP model, and it's slightly more affordable at $749. It literally has the exact same specs, except you're buying an HP versus buying an Acer. So really up to you which brand you like more. I am really, really even with both of these brands. I have great relationships with both of them, and I have great experiences with both of the laptops. So it's really up to you which one you want to go for. Again, bad color accuracy here though. So that's one difference. The Acer has better color accuracy at 65% and 49% versus the Pavilion at 62 and 39. So if you want slightly better color accuracy, you could snag the Acer Nitro 5. Next up is the MSI Modern 15. I've had this laptop in my studio. Like I said, good build quality, nice light aluminum for the chassis. And this laptop is around $900, comes with the i7-10110U, 2.1 on the base, 4.3 on the turbo, 4 cores, 8 threads. And the model that I reviewed had the MX330. This model's kind of hard to find. Just got to do your research, but this laptop was good for 1080p video editing. It was a little slow in 4K, though I did run the test. I just wasn't super satisfied with it. And do note that if you want to get this 99% sRGB and 60% Adobe RGB, make sure you're buying the Intel i7-10510U. This is the model that comes with this type of color accuracy. If you buy the i5 model, you will not get this color accuracy. You're going to get something around 65%. So note that i7 equals better color gamut range. So don't make the mistake of thinking you're going to get it with buying the i5. You will not. The color accuracy comes in the i7. Next up is the MSI GF65. This has been historically on my best laptops lineup for years now. It continues to be an awesome laptop. As they upgrade each model, at first it was the GF63, now it's the GF65, and now the GF75 is out. This is just a great budget laptop, especially for 4K video editing. It's around $935. You have the i7-10750H or the later i7-9750H. Either model works well. You're going to see about a 10% increase in performance with the newer 10750H. Not huge. So if you can find this model for a little less, I would honestly go for the 9750H. It's a great buy. Comes with the GTX 1660 Ti, 8 gigs of RAM. I'd upgrade that to 16 if you want to get more performance and multitasking. 512 SSD, 15-inch screen. Again, lower color accuracy, pretty disappointing. But I will note here, if you get the 17-inch model of this if you get the 17-inch model of this laptop, which is the GF75, you will get a more color accurate screen. If I'm not mistaken, it's an 89% sRGB and then like a 70-ish something percent, 68% Adobe RGB. So if you get a 17-inch model, you actually get a more color accuracy. 15-inch model, less color accuracy. So you know that you're making the right pick. All right, next up is the Acer Spin 5. This is one of my favorite laptops regarding color accuracy at a decent price point. So this laptop comes in at around $1,000, has great performance for 1080p video editing, and of course the full Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator that, we're in this category right now. We're still in the Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator category, but I'm mentioning the video editing capabilities because I didn't want to just stack all these laptops and repeat them. So I'm just trying to include those thoughtfully. So like I said, estimated price $1,000, comes to the i7-105G7, 1.3 on the base, 3.91 on the turbo, 4 cores, 8 threads, Intel Iris Plus graphics G7, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 SSD, really, really strong Corning glass display, 2K rather than just standard 1080p, and has 100% sRGB and 79% Adobe RGB. This is a great bang for buck laptop, especially for a creator wanting to get into Photoshop and have a color accurate screen. If you're going to get this same thing inside of, say, like the new MacBook Pro, this will be about $1,300 or so. And then, if you think about like a Microsoft Surface 3, which we'll talk about in a minute, that's going to be about $1,300. So kind of apples to apples, I would say the Modern 15 and the Acer Spin 5 are going to kind of be apples to apples, except the Acer Spin 5 is going to have a taller screen. It's a 2.3 rather than a 16.9 ratio. And it's going to be fully articulating. So you can have a pen, you can draw on it. That is your call. The only thing I've heard negative, and I didn't experience this when I was reviewing the laptop and had it in my studio and spent time with it, but people are saying there's like a screen flicker, like a minor screen flicker. I didn't notice that, but it affected some people. It did not affect me. Just keep that in mind if somebody comments that below and is like, what about the screen flicker? That's what they're talking about. All right, next up we have the Asus TUF A15. No review would be complete without this. I constantly get questions about this laptop, so I wanted to include it. My faux pas with this laptop are low color accuracy. My thumbs up with this laptop is beast processor, Ryzen 7 4800H for $1,000, GTX 1660 Ti, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 SSD. So it's a really powerful laptop. However, it does have bad color accuracy and it runs a little warm for my taste. Overall, though, great laptop, but a little loud, a little warm, and a little crappy as far as color accuracy is concerned. But if you're looking for performance on a budget, that is a great buy. 4K video editing laptop. All right, next up is the Asus, oh man, typo. This is the Lenovo Legion 5 and 5i. Sorry about the typo there. So this laptop is for the Legion 5. It's the Ryzen 7 4800H, 1660 Ti, 16 gigs of RAM. Almost the exact same as the Asus TUF A15. However, it is very important to consider that you get the 144 Hz version, and you can get 99% sRGB and 80% Adobe RGB. So this Ryzen 7 4800H with a 144 Hz is around $1,000, has a beast color accuracy, has great performance. It is a fantastic buy. Now, if you want to get the 5i, which is the Intel version with the i7-10750H. I was unable to find a 15-inch model. Right now, the only thing available that I was finding with 144 Hertz and an RTX 2060 was the 17-inch model, which puts you at around $1,700. So the 15-inch is hard to find, but if you can find it, make sure you find it with an 144 Hertz screen variant, because that'll be the better color accuracy. And then you might be able to find it with the 1660 Ti, which will give you a better price point. So take that for what it is, and these are great for 4K video editing as well. All right, moving forward, we have the MacBook Air M1. All right, so this laptop is great for Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, great for somebody getting started. It's the new M1 chip. It's got the unified 8 gigs of RAM. It's got the 16 gigs of neural engine, and it's just all built inside the fantastic new Apple M1 chip. Really throwing some hammers. Apple came out with this chip. Stoked about it. I filmed a couple full video walkthroughs on why it's cheaper, why it's so good. So you can check those out on my YouTube channel if you're interested in the MacBook Air or MacBook Pro with the M1 chip. I reviewed the MacBook Pro with the M1. Just keep that in mind. This laptop comes with 100% sRGB and 78% Adobe RGB. Next up on the categories is the best for Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, and After Effects. So we're moving above $1,000 to up to $1,500 price point. These are technically very capable laptops, improved color accuracy, Adobe's design suite, video editing with specific recommendations, and motion design. So we're going to see higher quality build materials. More RAM is going to equal better multitasking. More storage is going to need less need for external backups. So that's what we're going to see here in this category. Let's get into it. First and foremost, one of my favorite laptops that came out this past year was the HP Omen Ryzen 7 model. It's a beast. It's got, and if you get the if you get above the 60 Hertz screen refresh rate, you're going to have 99% sRGB and 72% Adobe RGB. If you get 60 Hertz, your screen quality drops to like 60%. It's terrible. So above 60%, so anything like the 120 Hertz, 144 Hertz, I'm not sure if there's a 240 Hertz available. There might be, there might not be. Correct me in the comments if you know. But anyway, this is around a $1,170 laptop for the specs that you see here on the list. You're going to have the Ryzen 7 4800H with 8 cores, 16 threads, GTX 1660 Ti, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gig SSD, 15-inch screen, and that great color accuracy. Also, something to note from a user standpoint, it has aluminum top cover. And so it just is it's a much more durable laptop than the HP Omen has been in the past. The HP Omen in the past is very, very, very plasticky and just kind of chintzy. Man, they made some good improvements this year. Also, the trackpad and the keyboard deck are amazing. Nice soft touch keys, quiet trackpad as well, good touch sensitivity. It's got like a nice matte finish on the trackpad. I could not say enough good things about this laptop when I reviewed it. I have some full reviews if you want to check those out. This laptop is great for Premiere Pro and After Effects for 4K video editing, I will move on, but this is best price to performance for me in this category. Next up is the Acer Predator Helios 300, one of my best-selling laptops on my channel for 2 years in a row. So both in 2019 and 2020, this laptop sold the most on my channel. People are very happy with this laptop. It's got great price to performance, and it's pretty crazy. I mean, you get the i7-10750, an RTX 2060, 16 gigs of RAM. You get slightly lower color accuracy than the HP Omen, but you get much more performance because it has the RTX 2060, which is more powerful GPU over the GTX 1660 Ti. So just keep that in mind. Again, 4K video editing and After Effects. You guys, thanks for hanging in here with me. I know there's a lot of laptops we're going through, but I'm getting you a ton of value in this short amount of time. Drop a like if you're getting some value here. That definitely helps the algorithm push this video out to more people, and of course helps me, and I'm very grateful for that. Let's keep moving forward. All right, next up, we're going to be looking at the MacBook Pro 13 M1. Okay, so this laptop has a lot of controversy surrounding it as far as video editing is concerned. My buddy over at Tech Notice said something that I will agree with, and that is this is for light 4K video editing. And what we mean by light 4K video editing is you want to have one 4K file in your computer and you can edit that. So kind of like a talking head footage, something like this right now. If I was to put this in my MacBook, a MacBook Pro with the M1 chip, I could easily clip up this, add some music, maybe add a few motion graphics, and from there it would have a smooth editing process. However, if I want to do like a 3-frame or 3-position camera and edit that all at the same time, it would bottleneck very quickly. It would become a very slow, laggy process. So this laptop is what I recommend for some 1080p video editing. It'll be the smoothest experience, and also I'd recommend it for Final Cut Pro. This handles Final Cut Pro like a beast because it's very, very native to Apple Silicon. It's around $1,300. Has the exact same processor as the MacBook Air, except it comes with a fan built into it, whereas the MacBook Air does not, and it accesses all of the chip. And the MacBook Air, I've actually heard, accesses partial amounts of the chip. I don't know why they do that, but they do. So great buy at 100% sRGB and 81% DCI-P3. All right, next up is the Acer Concept D3 Easel. Okay, this laptop I've been waiting for since CES 2020, and it's finally out. I'm reviewing it in my studio right now. I'm going to have a full review on it to come just here in the next week or so. But great laptop, really well built. The hinge is strong. The build materials are great. It's got aluminum. It's got a highly touch-sensitive pen. The pen's built into the system. I mean, Acer just pulled out all the stops for this laptop. This is my best artist and editor laptop. It's around $1,279. Comes with the i7-10750H, GTX 1650, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gig SSD, 14-inch Full HD display, 99% sRGB, and 79% Adobe RGB. So unfortunately, not the best color accuracy, but still great color accuracy. I'd recommend After Effects and Premiere Pro 4K editing in this model. I'm going to do my full review. So if you want to learn more about this laptop, I'm not going to just belabor on the point. Check that out when it comes out here in just a little bit. Next up is the Microsoft Surface Laptop 3. Like I said, this laptop is something that would compare around the same as the Acer Spin 5, but it's a little more expensive. So we have the i7-10650G7, same processor as the Acer Spin 5. Graphics, G7, 16 gigs of RAM, 256 gig SSD, actually a smaller SSD than the Spin 5, and it has slightly less color gamut range. 97% sRGB, 72% Adobe RGB. Still a great laptop. Microsoft produces a really good laptop here, good for 1080p, but just know that these two laptops are a pretty good comparison to each other. Next up is the Asus Zephyrus G14. It's one of my favorite all-aluminum, lightweight, on-the-go laptops for 4K video editing. Has the Ryzen 9 4900HS for around $1,400. 3.0 on the base clock, 4.3 on the turbo, 8 cores, 16 threads, RTX 2060, 16 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte SSD, all with a 91% sRGB, 60% Adobe RGB. Not a bad bang for buck for 4K video editing and After Effects. Next up is the MSI Prestige 15 Full HD. Now, do note that the Full HD and the 4K have different screens, obviously, and they also have different color accuracy. So if you get the Full HD model, you're going to get the i7-10710U. You're going to get the GTX 1650 Max Q, 16 gigs of RAM, Full HD display with 100% sRGB and 78% Adobe RGB. If you get the 4K model, you're going to get 100% sRGB and 100% Adobe RGB, or 99%. I can't know the exact number off the top of my head, forgive me. And you'll most likely get 32 gigs of RAM. So great laptops for 4K video editing and After Effects. Not a bad buy at all. All aluminum, lightweight, one of my favorite laptops that I reviewed this past year, and moving into 2021, it is still a fantastic buy. Hopefully we'll see the 11th gen version of this laptop soon, but only time will tell. Next up is the Asus ROG Strix G15 with a 240 hertz screen. This is my upper end best bang for buck laptop. The reason being you get the i7-10750H, an RTX 2070 GPU, which has 8 gigs of VRAM. Very, very powerful GPU, 32 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte of SSD, 98% sRGB, 63% Adobe RGB. So for around $1,500, this is a powerhouse of a laptop. It has really topped the charts of almost all of my benchmarks, which you'll see at the end of the video. We're going to go through video editing, Photoshop, After Effects, and a few other things. And you'll see this laptop at the top of the charts for most of the benchmarks. Next up is going to be the category where we're looking at the Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, After Effects, moving around $1,600 to $2,600 range. Powerhouse or niche use case is what we're going to see here. High color accuracy, Adobe's Design Suite, video editing, and Specs Recommended, of course, motion design. And these are also good for 3D modeling. So if you're somebody who's going to be getting into 3D modeling, obviously Adobe really isn't shine there yet with their programs, but I'm sure they're working on it. And then these are going to be more premium laptops, so premium materials, build qualities, battery lives, things along that nature. First up is the Spectre X360. This is really great for artist, editor. I just recently have had this laptop in my studio. It's got great build quality, solid laptop. You can watch my dedicated reviews on this as well. This laptop comes with the i7-10750H, or you can get it with the i7-1165G7. Watch my video about how to buy the right one for your use case. Okay, these are very similar laptops, but they have slightly different spec choices. I would definitely recommend watching that video if you're considering this laptop. This one I'm talking about right now comes with the GTX 1650 Ti, 16 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte of SSD, and a 4K display. There's a 4K OLED display with 100% sRGB and 99% Adobe RGB. Sorry, I left out that OLED detail, but this is an OLED display. 4K video editing as well as After Effects. Next up, okay, I know I've said I like a lot of laptops, and I don't want to sound like, I just keep repeating myself. But if I was going to put my money down on a laptop today, let's say today, I would highly recommend the Gigabyte Aero 15. Now, I would not purchase it maybe today, and I just said if I had to purchase one today, I'd purchase it today, but just hear me out. This laptop right now is around $1,869. If you keep an eye on this laptop on, say, Amazon or B&H or one of the places, you can click the links in the description below to get a couple options for yourself. You can see this laptop below $1,600, depending on the season. I saw this laptop at actually around $1,400 during the Black Friday season. I saw the 1660 version of this laptop at around $1,200. So this laptop can fluctuate in price a lot, and it is a fantastic laptop. It comes with the i7-10750H, either the 1660 Ti or the RTX 2060, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 SSD, and you have 100% sRGB and 100% Adobe RGB, all inside of just a killer, well-built laptop. It's an aluminum build. Really high praises for this laptop. Great job from Gigabyte. It's a laptop that's kind of more like in the background. Like Gigabyte doesn't get a ton of praise on the mainstream of like HP, Acer, Asus, all those, but it's just a hidden gem that I just really, really like. And a great team. Met these guys at CES. They're just awesome. All right, next up is the MSI Prestige 15 4K, because this is what I mentioned earlier about the 4K and the 1080p having different settings. So as you see, we have 100% sRGB and 100% Adobe RGB, 32 gigs of RAM, but then here with the CPU and GPU, all the specs are going to be the same, and it's going to be about $500 more. Next up is the Dell XPS 15 9500. This is the first laptop that I used to run my YouTube channel. I've got great fondness of this laptop. It's got a good build quality. I love that soft touch carbon fiber keyboard deck with the aluminum chassis exterior. It's a great laptop, good build, bigger trackpad than the one that I originally owned. They actually moved the camera back up to the top of the bezel. Great move from Dell. And also has our beloved SD card reader. It's just a great all-in-one on-the-go creator laptop. Comes in at around $2,000 with the i7-10750H, GTX 1650 Ti, 16 gigs of RAM, and 100% sRGB, 100% Adobe RGB. So great build quality, great color accuracy at a decent price point. Not budget, but decent. 4K and also After Effects capabilities in this laptop. The MSI Creator 15. This is a laptop that is pretty stacked. Okay, so we have the around $2,000, we're going to have the i7-10875H. This is an 8-core, 16-thread processor. Has the RTX 27 Super, which is an 8 gig VRAM GPU, 32 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte of SSD, 4K display with 100% sRGB and 100% Adobe RGB. If you're looking to spend around $2,000, I mean, this laptop is a really good buy. 4K video editing and After Effects. Just because it has a good build quality, it's got all the specs that you need for 4K. I mean, I like this one a lot. All right, next up is the Asus ProArt StudioBook 15, another great buy. This it's got a good build quality, but it feels a little hollow to the tap. I was looking at this one at CES. I like it. I like their vision. I like where they're going. It's just a little chunkier than, say, the MSI Creator 15. So in this laptop, we have the i7-9750H. So again, an older generation processor. We have the RTX 2060, 6 gigs of VRAM, 32 gigs of RAM. We have a RAID backup built into this, which is actually pretty cool. So you risk losing your files a little bit less. 4K display with 100% sRGB and 100% Adobe RGB. Both are great buys. If you're a big Asus fan, I'd go with this one. If you like MSI, I would definitely go with this one. So two good options at around the same price point. Next up is the beloved MacBook Pro 16. Can't complain about this laptop whatsoever. A lot of people are waiting out for hopes that the MacBook Pro turns into an M1 or M1X or M2, whatever they're saying it's going to be called. So, if you're one of those people, you're going to probably ask if you should hold out and get that one. I don't know. I don't know when they're going to launch this laptop with the new processor. When they do, it's going to be a beast. It's going to totally, I would guess it's going to totally outshine this current model. But if you have to make a buy, it's still a great laptop. 100% sRGB, 100% Adobe RGB, Radeon Pro 5300M. Base models around $2,200. Great for 4K and After Effects. No complaint to this laptop, but do note that, yeah, it's going to get better when it comes with the M1 chip. We just don't know when that's going to happen. And when it does, I will definitely pick one up, review it, and give you my opinions. Next up is the Razer Blade Advanced, really great laptop, almost a doppelganger of the MacBook Pros. You see 2 speaker grills on the side, aluminum build. The SD card reader is a big win for the Razer Blade Advanced 15 over the MacBook Pro. It's got more ports, more connectivity. The MacBook Pros, of course, just have, the Thunderbolt ports. So if you're more of an on-the-go creator, this is a great buy, especially when, headed up against the Dell XPS 15. So you're going to have a slightly more powerful processor in this one over the Dell XPS 15, slightly more powerful GPU, more storage, about 16 gigs of RAM. It has 16 gigs of RAM. And then you're going to have less color accuracy, though. You're going to have 99% sRGB and 65% Adobe RGB. However, if you get a 4K version, I have the 4K base model here. Okay, so if you get the 4K OLED version of this laptop, you're going to get 99% sRGB, 65% Adobe RGB. So you really don't even get that much. This laptop's really hard to find with that 100% Adobe RGB. I think in that super model, I forgot it's, anyway, you can get a premium version of this laptop. I'm not sure what it's called off the top of my head, and I feel like a fool forgetting it, but it's their big beast. It's got a Quadro GPU, and so it's their premier version of the Razer Blade. I think you can get almost 100% Adobe RGB in that one. I know that it has 100% DCI-P3, which a lot of people credit as being even more accurate and valuable than even Adobe RGB, but that's up to a matter of opinion. We're going to leave that for another conversation. All right, now let's get into the benchmark. So you guys have been awesome hanging in here with me. Let's show you what a lot of these laptops look like on the benchmark. So I'm going to just kind of talk here for a few minutes about the specs. I'm going to leave this up on the screen so you can see each laptop you might be considering and where it falls on the benchmarks. Now, I'm going to talk through this. So if your laptop is anywhere above this, you've got a very fast laptop. And let's think about this. Here's a 2015 MacBook Pro. I still have one of these. It's a fantastic laptop. It runs Photoshop totally smooth. So, when you think about this laptop running Photoshop smooth, this laptop would run Photoshop just zippy quick. So, anywhere in this range, you're basically good to run Photoshop. Down here, the MSI Modern 15 has a 323. It's slightly lower than I'd want. But right here, we have the current Apple MacBook Pro i5, okay? And this is running at about a 422, and I would definitely recommend this laptop for Photoshop. And then we have, as we move up the line a little bit, here the brand new MacBook Pro Air M1, which is beating it out by over 100 points. I definitely recommend this laptop for Photoshop. And then as we move all the way up the line here, here's the Asus ROG Strix G. I said just beasted a lot of the benchmarks earlier. But we have MacBook Pro. Right up here, one of the top laptops in Photoshop is the MacBook Pro with 788. So like I said, yeah, you might want to wait for the new M1 chip. But I mean, if you're going to be a Photoshop, this is an 813 on the Puget Photoshop benchmark score. I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, yeah, maybe you might be able to get a 850 or 875 when the M1 comes out. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, if you're in these ranges, you're totally fine. Your laptop's going to be great in Photoshop. All right, let's keep moving forward. Next up is the Premiere Pro 4K to 4K export. So what I do for this test is I take a 9-minute 4K clip, put it into Premiere Pro, and then export it out at 4K YouTube settings. So as you see, the lower is better. So we have the times here. The G17, which is, similar performance to the G15 that I have here in this lineup, is a beast. 2 minutes and 49 seconds for that export time. Really, anything in this range is solid. It's just ridiculously fast. And even as you move up here to 5 or 6 minutes, I mean, okay, wait, you wait a couple extra minutes for it to export. Now, I don't have like full playback charts here. I might make a chart for that in the future, but if you're curious about the full playback of any of these laptops that I've tested, I talk about those specs in my dedicated reviews. So head on over to my channel if you're curious about a laptop that I've tested. I've tested all of these laptops that you see here on this benchmark, and you can see the exact playback results in 4K, so you know how smooth the editing experience will be. All right, moving forward, let's look at After Effects. So again, After Effects, if you're anywhere above the 600 range, 600 to 700, you're gonna have a fast laptop inside of After Effects. So this is the After Effects standard benchmark. I'll leave it here just for a minute or so. Some of my favorites in After Effects have been the Asus TUF A15, the Strix G17, the HP ZBook G7, the HP Omen, the Asus ProArt Studio Book, and even the HP Spectre X360. And here's that Gigabyte Aero that I praise so highly right there sitting at the middle of the charts. So you get some great After Effects scores here. Next up is the After Effects render benchmarks. Again, you're going to see laptops with dedicated GPUs getting better performance. So things like this is that 8 gig GPU I was telling you about, the RTX 2070. Look at that. It's just beasting the charts compared to even, where's my Ryzen build. So this is my Ryzen build with a 1660 Ti. It's beating it out by over 100 points. So that G15 and G17 are a great buy, especially at that 240 hertz variant with that color accuracy. So $1,500. How can you beat that? Okay, so now that we've looked at the benchmark test, let's talk quickly through performance. Let's talk CPU, GPU, RAM, and hard drives. So first of all, with the CPU, if you're going to be video editing and you're going to be using After Effects, I definitely recommend an H series processor, whether that be a Ryzen 5 4600H or a Intel i5 10300H or a 9300H. These processors are going to be great for video editing, 4K video editing, and then you move up the line to say like the Ryzen 7 4800H, beast processor with 8 cores and 16 threads. You have the i7 10750H, and then we'll hopefully be seeing the 11 750H soon from Intel. And then of course you have the i7 10875, which is 8 cores and 16 threads. These are great processors. Moving up to the i9, great processors for 4K video editing, After Effects, things along those nature. Now, moving to Photoshop, if you're just going to be doing Photoshop, just InDesign and Illustrator, you can get away with U processors and G series processors, no problem. So that's where you're going to get a little bit more budget-friendly laptops, and you'll be good in that range. Now, if you're curious, like I said, about full in-depth comparisons and reviews of each of the processor numbering SKUs and letter SKUs, I filmed a video about that, and you can check that out on my channel. Now, moving on to GPU. If you're going to be doing video editing and After Effects, dedicated GPU is important. It's because you're off-putting a lot of that performance of the video rendering to a GPU. So the CPU says, hey, that's a lot of graphical processing. I'm going to move that over to I'm going to send a signal and say, hey, you take care of this. I've got other things to worry about. So the CPU is basically telling the GPU. Now, if you're in Photoshop, you think, well, I'm in Photoshop, I'm a graphic designer, or I'm working with pictures. These are graphics, right? I need a GPU. I need a dedicated GPU. No, you don't. I really wish they'd rename the GPU to like a VPU, like a video processing unit, because that's really makes more sense. It's processing motion, it's processing video, it's not processing the stereo graphics inside of, say, InDesign, Illustrator, or Photoshop. So you don't need a dedicated GPU. In fact, in some of the tasks, the most you'll see, as far as my reviews have been with Puget systems, is about 9% of the GPU use, which is nothing. You might as well eliminate it. But it uses it because it's there. So dedicated GPU for video editing and After Effects, Don't need a dedicated GPU for Adobe InDesign, Photoshop, and Illustrator. So that's a short, condensed way to kind of walk through that. Now, the next thing would be RAM. Like I said, base level for Photoshop, I think 8 gigs is awesome. A lot of people will say, hey, you can use 4, and sure, you can use 4. But the thing is with 8, you're gonna have better multitasking, because a lot of times for me personally, if I'm working in Photoshop, I'm personally gonna be working in InDesign or Illustrator to complement that for different projects. So if I have more RAM, that means I'm gonna have more multitasking abilities. Moving up to video editing, I wanna see 16 gigs of RAM personally, because usually when I'm video editing, I'm using at least 4 to 8 gigs of RAM. So that pulls away a lot from my multitasking ability. And usually your system uses up about 2 to 3 gigs of RAM, depending on the system that you have. Your computer kind of eats it up already. And then if you open like a Google web browsing tab, you're going to use another 2 to 3. So you can see quickly how much your RAM gets eaten up. And so for video editing, I recommend 16. I think the best is 32. And then beyond that, if you're doing like crazy video editing, like 6K and 8K, then you got a whole nother story there. Okay, now for storage. I recommend solid state. The reason is it's more reliable and it's faster. Hard disk drives are kind of, in my opinion, phasing out for internal and computers. They're still great for backup. I have a couple hard disk drives inside of like housings for backups on my desk here. They're great for storage. But for me, I want performance and reliability from a solid state drive in my computer. If you're curious about the exact pricing of any of these models as we've been going through the video, or the availability, you can head down in the description below and click one of those links. Now, if you do use those links to make a purchase, we'll get a small commission, but at no extra cost to you. That's what keeps this channel alive and the helpful content coming your way. If you want more videos like this, click or tap the screen over here. Otherwise, keep editing, keep creating, keep designing. I'm Benji Kaiser, and I'll see you here in the next video.